Russia is launching its largest conscription drive since the Ukraine war began, drafting 160,000 young men into military service. Officials insist these soldiers won't be sent to the front, but past evidence suggests otherwise. Will these new conscripts be drawn into the war effort? Are they being mistreated? And how is Ukraine responding? Let's break down the full picture. Russia has a long history of mandatory military service. The country holds 2 draft cycles per year, one in spring, one in autumn, where men aged 18 to 30 must serve 1 year in the armed forces. Officially, Russian law states that conscripts cannot be deployed to active combat zones unless they sign a contract to become professional soldiers. However, there have been multiple reports of loopholes, deception, and forced enlistment, particularly since the Ukraine war began. In 2022, some Russian conscripts were mistakenly sent into combat, with several being captured by Ukrainian forces. The Kremlin initially denied it, but later admitted that conscripts had been deployed due to human error. Critics argue this was no accident, but a deliberate policy. Now, with 160,000 new draftees entering service, the big question is, will history repeat itself? On April 1st, President Vladimir Putin signed a decree authorizing the recruitment of 160,000 men, marking the largest draft since 2011. Russian officials claim this is a routine process and unrelated to the Ukraine war. But the timing raises eyebrows. Russia's forces in Ukraine have suffered heavy losses. While Moscow does not publish official figures, Western intelligence estimates that hundreds of thousands of Russian troops have been killed or wounded since the invasion began. To make up for this, Russia has pushed recruitment efforts to the extreme, offering huge cash bonuses, recruiting prisoners, and even allowing men to enlist in exchange for having their criminal records cleared. With such desperation for manpower, many believe this new wave of conscripts will eventually be sent to Ukraine, despite official denials. While Russia claims conscripts aren't sent to war, several methods have been used to circumvent the law. Many conscripts are told that their lives will be easier if they sign a contract, effectively turning them into professional soldiers. In past drafts, some conscripts were accidentally misclassified and sent to Ukraine. Others have been told they're being sent on training exercises only to find themselves in combat zones. For young Russian men, refusing to serve isn't easy. Dodging the draft is illegal, and those who attempt it face jail time or fines. In 2022, hundreds of thousands fled the country to avoid mobilization. Now, with fresh conscriptions underway, fear is rising again. For those who are drafted, the experience is often harsh and unforgiving. Reports from past conscripts paint a grim picture. Some young recruits suffer beatings from senior soldiers in a brutal hazing ritual known as Dedovshchina. Many are housed in overcrowded, unsanitary barracks with minimal food and medical care. Some receive just a few weeks of training and are then sent to fight with outdated equipment. In extreme cases, soldiers have been coerced into combat roles under threat of punishment or execution. The Committee of Soldiers' Mothers, a Russian activist group, has long criticized the mistreatment of young draftees. Many parents are terrified their sons will not return home. Open protests in Russia are rare, given the harsh penalties for dissent. However, silent resistance continues. Some families attempt to bribe officials to get their sons out of service, while others forge medical documents to claim unfitness for duty. Many young men simply disappear, either going into hiding or leaving the country. Last year, an estimated 700,000 Russian men fled abroad after Putin announced a partial mobilization. Now, with the latest draft, a new wave of draft dodgers may follow. The Kremlin has cracked down on these evasion tactics, making it harder to leave the country and expanding the list of health conditions that no longer exempt men from service. Ukraine and its Western allies are watching closely. While new conscripts alone won't change the tide of war, their presence signals that Russia is preparing for a prolonged conflict. Ukraine, which has also faced its own manpower shortages, continues to receive Western military aid. The US and NATO allies have stepped up their support, supplying advanced weapons to help Kiev counter Russia's numerical advantage. Experts believe Russia is trying to outlast Ukraine in a war of attrition. By continuously drafting new soldiers, Moscow may hope to grind down Ukrainian forces over time. However, poorly trained and unwilling conscripts could become a liability rather than a strength. Ukraine has successfully targeted underprepared Russian units in the past, leading to high casualties and low morale. As 160,000 young Russian men prepare to enter military service, their future remains uncertain. Will they truly be kept away from Ukraine, as officials promise, or will they be pressured, misled, or forced into combat? For now, the Kremlin insists this is just a routine draft, but in the shadow of war, routine means little. For many conscripts and their families, this spring conscription may be the most dangerous one yet.